Ladies and gentlemen, Eddie Marcus here again, spokesman and advocate of basic human rights for all people. I want to speak to you this morning about a couple of things. You know, in America, we try to say, keep God out of politics. And to me, that is dumb. God is in everything. And to keep God out of certain things means you open the door for all of that which has nothing to do with God to control. And so I am one who advocates God simply because I believe I was raised up to believe in God. I went to church a lot, and the Bible taught us a lot of information about God, perhaps information that we didn't actually experience in our daily living. But for some strange reason, that did not deny us what we had conceived as being what God was truly about. In fact, we learned that God was a loving God even before we knew what love was. We were taught that God was always dependable even before we had, as far as we knew, a reason to depend on God. Because when you're a child, your God is your mother and your father. Your God is your parents. But there was enough put there to make you always have in the back of your mind, in the core of your being, in the core of your spirit, that there is something called God. And once you're mature enough to recognize that there are some things that exist that man, as we know men to be, could have nothing to do with. And so not having any other thing that we can hang our hats on about what is the cause and the purpose of it, we naturally, I did, go to the God concept. The earth exists because of God. Human beings exist because of God. All the resources that are essential for the survival of mankind exist because of God. But not just a God, but a caring God. A God who prepared one for everybody and everybody for one. And so, you know, we're coming up with a concept like that and then experiencing what we call miracles. And what I call as a miracle is for something else. You might not want to put it up with the creation of the earth or humankind, but it's something that happens that you get a chance to experience in your life that no human being could ever cause to happen. And you recognize that that miracle basically is for you, because sharing it with someone else, they're not going to believe it, because it's impossible. It's not a thing that mankind can conceive in their own mind. So a miracle is for the individual. But also, for me, a miracle to happen to an individual gives that individual a perspective about life and purpose that others don't have. And I recognize it as a call to duty, a call to speak and represent that God that you are familiar with, not the God that you heard about or read about, but the God that has experienced an exposure with you, something that qualifies you to go against the arguments. Now, what I want to call on a few subjects that maybe give some example of what I mean. Homosexuality. Now, I was raised to think that homosexuality was wrong. Just plain old D wrong. And so, as far as my construct goes, to see homosexuality is just wrong. Some people call it just outright a sin. Somebody might want to call it demonic. But wrong. Now, I know that it exists, and I know it really is perpetuated on some of the other things that happen in society. For instance, women many times use their body, let's say prostitution. Why do people prostitute? Well, you ask yourself, what do they get out of it? The women get paid. Paid. Men get something else, but they are willing to give their money because they get that something else. But if a woman didn't need that money, she would not be prostituting. So it seems if you want to get rid of prostitution, you make sure people have access to what they need, what they want, what they desire. And if you can't do that, you got a mission to do before you can start really complaining. Same thing when it comes down to the homosexuality thing. There are men who submit themselves to the advances of homosexual men for the simple same reasons, because they can get a benefit from it. And that benefit comes because the homosexual gets what they want. My big problem with it is, though, being against homosexuality as I am, is to see children that are raised by homosexual men, where men walk amongst the kids, treating each other the same way mom and dad treat each other. It seems as if that kid has a foundation that this is proper. It might be, but I don't see it like that. But I hear the argument goes that, well, homosexuals usually come from families of a mother and a father. And so if they were able to come out of that, then what precipitated that? And so that argument might go on and on. The thing of it is that when I don't know why this happens, maybe I wasn't taught, when you see homosexuality, gayism expressed in women, most men that I know don't see it the same way as two men slobbering over each other. Two men slobbering over each other is just repugnant to some men, especially when I see it. And yet when I see two women slobbering over each other, it doesn't affect me the same way. It makes things inside of me start moving, exciting me for some strange reason. I don't know why. Maybe pulling me to engage myself in you know what. And so these things have their consequences. Some people see women doing it and they feel the same way. Have I ever, since I'm talking, been engaged or experienced myself in a homosexual act? Yes, I have. Give me an example. When I was in college. Now, you don't need this information, but I'll share this information with you, because to be free means to be clear. And you can't judge me, and I can't judge you beyond where I feel. I can't hurt you. So here I go. I'm a social scientist. Now, I go to school. I'm getting ready to do my thesis to get out of college. But I chose to be a social scientist. Now, I'll never have any interest in teaching school. But one of the requirements for a social scientist is that you have to do student teaching. So I reject that. I reject student teaching. I'm not doing student teaching, but I've done all the requirements for graduation, but I'm not doing student teaching. So you go over the director of the department head might want you to come by and talk to them about your thesis, get some information on. So you go by to talk with them, and all of a sudden you're sitting there and some dude slap a big kiss on your kisser. And you say, what the heck is this? So you resist that and you leave. Okay, now, you say, well, did you go tell anybody? Did you go and bring it out, expose them? No, you're not exposing anybody. Why? Because what good is that going to do? You're not out to hurt people. You just get yourself out of there. Now, other people might see different points of view on that. But here I go, when they're putting a list up of people graduating, and I'm looking at the list, looking to see my big name up there, and there's no name. So I go and talk to the director, and he tells me that I couldn't graduate because I didn't do student teaching. So what do? I tell him I'm leaving, and I'll be back in 1 hour. And when I come back, my name better be on that list, or everybody gonna know what kind of punk he is. So I leave, and I come back in an hour, and my name is on that list. You see how things can be messed up by people doing all kinds of crazy things? Well, I just shared that with you, ladies and gentlemen, because I know all of the kinds of things that we are afraid of, all the kind of things we think that is not going on, is absolutely going on. So I just want to give you that little bit of information about me so you can know that some of the things I talk to you about, I know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, when you hear me say that, I made a note here, and I just want to make sure I stay true to the, let's say, division in politics. We have Republican Party, Democratic Party. They both know that each individual requires the same thing, but the process of achieving that is different. Now, if you look at the Democrats' approach, will it meet the needs of all the people? No way. No way. Let's look at the Republicans' approach. Will it meet the needs of all of the people? No way, no way, no how. So why you keep following some direction that leads you nowhere? Keep arguing about this and that leads you to nowhere. Now, you've heard me say many times, calling people, at least I think most recently I did a video called Demonic Possession. And I said, a person who lies, cheats, steals, and kills, and terrorizes and abuses other people, do so because they have demonic tendencies within them, which basically says they are against what I perceive as the Creator's will for us all. They do these things. And in so doing these things, they can't be representing God. They might be representing their limited ability of understanding what realities are about. But in so doing, it is because a demonic spirit is there that prevents that from happening. Now, what I really mean when I say that is just that. But here again, where I talk about my choice for God, is because even though a homosexual does the things that they do and trap people and people use them for benefits whatsoever it might be, you as people of God refrain from activities that does not represent God, but at the same time you must love. You must love those violators of God's way of life as though they are still God's children. You must symbolize to them the kind of lifestyle, the kind of tradition that represents God, so that they can understand what God is, what God's love is all about. In other words, if they are low down and dirty, they know what that is about, but you understand what love is about. And so while you look at them as having demonic traits, you show love. You don't become a demon. You show them love. Even though you know that they are killed, you'll be willing to die for what is love, because that's what love is. Now, sometimes you might not understand the depths of all this kind of stuff, but it is definitely there to be understood. And so when I say a person is demonic, that doesn't mean that I got to separate myself from that person. That doesn't mean I got to run from that person, run from those practices. But my love, if it's genuine, is going to love that person in spite of that. And so when I think about running for president of the United States, or when I think about running for United States Senator from the state of Minnesota, I'm saying I know what people think. When they hear me say that somebody's demonic, when they hear me say that the Constitution was designed, some people call it the Founding Fathers, and they lift them up above God. And when I see the Constitution, the only thing I say is a group of men who have no understanding of the reality of God, even though they try to use it in words. Their actions indicate that it's not. When you say women are muzzled, when you see that other people of different nationalities or race or color, should I say, are belittled and called less than animals, when you see people of that same race who have no money being searched, working for people who do have money. And the only people that have a voice are the people with money. The only ones who can really contract and do things are people with money, who make laws to protect what they have done and their interests and make it others. Those doors are basically shut unless they are able and willing to come into some secret society that allow them to do things that the public does not understand. Well, see, I call that demonic because of the pain and the suffering and the hate that is established or created out of these kind of activities. What else can it be? But it doesn't mean that I got something against you. It doesn't mean that I'm coming at you with a baseball bat. It doesn't mean that I'm putting money to make bombs and stuff to destroy you. That's, again, is real demonic stuff. God walks right into that door and show you love. Show you love, my friends. Show you love. It doesn't mean I'm going to vote for you because you're a better candidate than the next candidate. If both of you are missing the mark, you're missing the mark. But if I say you're missing the mark, I'm going to stand up against you. I'm going to represent something else. Example. I'm just going to use this. Sanders, running for president of the United States as a Democrat. He kept telling the American people what Miss Clinton was about, what she was representing, who supported her, and how much better he was than she for the American people. But in that end game, he withdrew and put his support behind one that he said he's better than. How can you do that? Just to win? What? Are you out of your mind? Just to win? You the best. That's like, well, God is everything, but if you go for God, you're not going to win this. So you put God on the back burner and you step in line with the bull. And then expect God to be proud of you? Expect God to say, my good and faithful servant, well done? You got to be out of your mind. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I say God, because out of all the hellishness we have around us, out of all of the pain and suffering that's created by men and their different philosophies about life, usually it comes by something that you've learned. But the reality of it is this, is that it is God's business to have peace and prosperity. The fact that God gave us choice means that God wanted us to learn. Yes, by having choice, we stray way, 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 way off the path. But that same choice that allowed us to stray off that path, when we go far enough, it will bring us straight back in line. Take some time. Oh, sometimes it seems like it's never going to come. But that same choice will lead us right back down the path. And when we get back on the path, we don't be wishing this way and washing that way. We advocate for straight down that path. Not to the Democrat, not to the Republican, not to the black men or the white men or the old folks or the young folks or the men or the women, but straight down that path that leads to peace, prosperity, and joy. Now, there are a lot of people that the public is more interested in as far as supporting to be Senator of Minnesota than me, based upon what I've just shared with you. But the truth of the matter is, when I speak to you about God's way, I'm saying that I would advocate, I don't care what you think, I'm advocating for food and clothing and shelter for every Minnesotan. Now, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take some time, but the advocacy must be there. That every last one of them have access to education and health care, and that there is nothing that would deny them from it except it doesn't exist. And understanding that none of these things can be met unless the people who receive these benefits have a job, that they have a career, and play a part in the creation of this process. This is God's way. And so I bring that to the American people. I bring that to the people of the state of Minnesota. I bring that to the people of the church. I bring that to the people of the world with no shame in my game. Why? Because I've been a fool like everybody else. But thank God Almighty, I had my eyes open. And it liberates me to stand before you as a free man and say that I give my life, I commit my life not only to God, but to you. That the way of the true God of creation, the way of the true God of love can be experienced in your life. And that you, while living here in these bodies, I don't care nothing about the alien stuff they talk about, but living in here in these bodies on this earth during these times, that you can raise up your hand and be glad that the sun is shining. And if it's going to rain and snow, it's not going to bother you. It's just an opportunity for you to glory in all that God is about. The pain and suffering is going away because your eyes have been opened and you can see the steps, moves that you got to make. And you make them. I ain't no shame in my game about that. So this is why I advocate for God. Thank you so very much.